Second guest overcame cyclones, sandstorms, smoking volcanoes and a mountain of red tape to fly into the record books by becoming the first woman to circumnavigate the globe in a helicopter. Here to tell us all about that amazing adventure, please welcome Jenifer Murray. So, well, fantastic. All the way around the globe in a helicopter.
Yes, indeed.
But the first question obviously has to be why?
Well, it's a good question, and I've been asked it many times, but I only took up flying 3 years ago. And I became passionate about it, and I love adventure, I love challenge. I'd heard about the other 4 circumnavigations of the globe, all in bigger helicopters, and just thought this would be a tremendous challenge to do it in the little one that we had.
So you'd only been flying for how long?
3 years.
3 years when you decided to set out on this huge journey.
Yeah.
Never been done before. What were the things that you were most worried about that could go wrong?
That we might arrive somewhere where there was no fuel. That's a technical problem. But we could have come up against some really violent weather over water, or we could have had an engine failure over water. I mean, that is, and then you're in the drink, and that's not funny.
Because the thing about this was it was a single-engined helicopter, is that right?
It's a single-engine helicopter.
You didn't do it on your own, though. There was
no,
pilot.
I had a very good, very well-qualified pilot, Quentin Smith, and he's actually the reigning world helicopter champion, solo freestyle. So I wasn't just traveling with anybody, he was there, and he was a great security. If we'd had really severe weather, which we did, then there was no question about who took the controls.
So you were on the flight for what, 97 days?
Yes.
30,000 miles. Just, an incredible journey. How did you get on? That's what you got on.
Well, actually, we got on really well. Maybe, it helped a lot that there was a big difference in our ages. He's got a great sense of humour, very entertaining to be with. We'd flown a lot together before, so it was fairly tried and tested. But it does put it to the test, I tell you, when you're that long together. And, there are a lot of times when you're very tired, and there's tension due to, weather problems. But actually, we're still good friends. We're still smiling. It's worked well.
What were the moments when you thought, this is where I really don't want to be doing this? I mean, were there moments, what were the scariest moments?
Well, I guess the sandstorms that we encountered, one particularly in Saudi Arabia, that was one of our first moments when I thought, uh-oh, but we came through that one. We actually, the sandstorm was building underneath us, and we just kept on going up. And now sandstorms can go up to 24,000 feet. And our helicopter really cannot go above 16. In fact, you should.
Well, I was going to say, it's already well going. Yeah. Keep going up to avoid it. There comes a point where you're going to have to come down.
You'd have to go down
through it,
and that would that could be catastrophic. But hopefully, you would auto-rotate down through it. You'd totally sandblast the helicopter. You might be able to land on the ground, but the chances are you might get disorientated because we don't have an automatic pilot. So it wasn't a good situation, but we actually, it topped out at 14,000 feet. The performance of the helicopter wasn't great, but we held it there. And
you flew over the open sea with icebergs and everything as well, presumably. I mean, I once did a thing in a crash test simulator for a helicopter, and it's not a particularly pleasant experience. I would imagine dropping in the drink when you're in amongst icebergs, you wouldn't have a great deal of chance of surviving that, would you?
Well, we did a Dunker course at the Royal Naval Base at Yeovilton, how to get out of a sunken craft, because a helicopter just goes straight down in the water, not like a fixed wing, which just floats for a bit. So you've got to get out very fast. But even though we had on dry suits, if we'd gone down in the Arctic waters, you've actually got about 8 minutes to get into your life raft. Otherwise, you've had it. You're gone. So, and I tell you, just the only time in the entire trip when the engine ran rough was between Canada and Greenland, and suddenly, some of the pistons were missing, and we went through the dry routine, of what it was going to be when we were wet. And Q took the pins out of his door so he could just punch it out if necessary.
Pretty scary stuff.
That was quite scary. But, to counteract all that, we had brilliant moments. I mean, really brilliant times. Most of the time, it was just stunning, and we saw the world like no one's seen it.
Well, you're actually a grandmother.
Yeah.
How did your family feel about you taking off on this mad trip?
Actually, my husband was going to do it with us originally. We were going to do it in 2 helicopters next year, and that all got impossible, and he hadn't got the time off to do it. No, everyone has been very encouraging. very positive. And my mother was the most concerned, I think. She said, "Oh, I really had my first good night's sleep in 97 days."
Yeah, great. Well, it looked like a lot of fun. I have to say, whilst I was actually reading all the notes on it, you really were having a lot of fun, weren't you? Because as you mentioned that you had lobster and sweet corn at one position. Another place, somebody gave you a nice trout to eat, and you went on to an ice cream parlour afternoon. I mean, in amongst it, you were actually making sure you were stopping off and having some good...
Oh, yes, we had some really, really great times, you know, and there was such a variety. You know, you could do so much just in one day. You could be on the top of a glacier, and then 10 minutes later you could be down where there was grass and trees, and or we were in the jungles of Borneo, and in the morning, and then that evening we were sitting with the British High Commissioner in his garden, watching a dress rehearsal for Handel's Creation, which was being a birthday celebration for the Queen. Wonderful colonial scene, but you know, complete contrast from what we've been doing just a few hours before.
So what's your most memorable adventure that you had on the trip?
You know, we just had so many. I mean, of course, being in Hong Kong for the handover, a place where I've lived for 30 years, that was very special. Seeing the Royal Yacht Britannia move out from the quayside, that for me was the moment when Britain was leaving Hong Kong. That was very memorable. Arriving back here was especially memorable. Going through Russia, that was quite special. I think we were the first private helicopter to ever fly along those routes. So, and the people were wonderful, they were friendly, hospitable, but it took 5 hours to get through every airfield.
You're a good example to people because you just got up and did it. Presumably, do you think anybody could get up and do this kind of thing if they have the determination?
Yeah, if anyone has got the idea and thinking about doing it, don't just think about it, go and do it. But, I mean, something like this, don't go unless one of you is really, really qualified. This is not... It's not something you do without tremendous qualification. You are put to the test, and you know we really were, and I think we were quite lucky. On the whole, we had pretty good weather, but not always.
You've done brilliantly. You're in the Guinness Book of Records now.
I should be. What I come in as is the fastest woman around the world.
That's quite a type.
That's what we like. So what's next for you? What's the next plan?
Well, it's a good question. I'm thinking up all sorts of possibilities. First, I'm going to do a book of this one, and I hope there'll be a documentary, and then there are quite a few ideas going.
Well, the best of luck with everything you do. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. My
Congratulations.
Jenifer Murray.
Jenifer Murray.